38% more likely to have above average productivity, achieve stronger company earnings, and that could be as high as 186%. And in the subsequent slide, we will share some research to that extent. Certainly less attrition, which certainly should lead to lower recruitment costs. But then what drives engagement? We've understood that it's countries and companies need to engage employees to drive GDP growth or the revenue growth or the reduce attrition, etc., or reduce costs. But then what drives engagement? So on the next slide, what employees have told us through various surveys for various clients and clubbed together and the best employer studies in different countries, that most important is career opportunities. So if you promise and if you can deliver career opportunities which will come from growth in business, which will come from your employees, so it's a virtuous circle. If we can recognize people for the good work that they do, and if we can have people practices that are aligned to deliver on employee needs, then the employees would be engaged. In India, additionally, it's also about brand alignment, which means, are you delivering on your promise? Do you have a clearly articulated promise that you are delivering on? So this is what engages employees. Are we doing all of this right? Let's see what we think we're doing, and let's see what employees think we're doing on the next slide. So we hear CEOs and CHROs saying that our employees are our greatest asset, right? But what are the employees saying? Only 40% of the employees believe that their senior leaders treat employees as organization's most valued assets. However, in best employers, it's 72%. We know that our strength is our people. That's another rhetoric we hear from a lot of companies and senior management. But only 46% of employees trust that there's a balance of employee interest and organizational interest. In best employers, it's about 73%. We can offer you opportunities for career growth and development. Another statement we often hear. But only 42% employees believe that their future career opportunities look good. In best employers, it's 65%. So clearly, best employers are walking the talk and hence engaging employees and hence delivering better business results, whereas most of us need to travel a long way before we get to promises that we're making. And on the next slide, this is a slide I was referring earlier. We continuously do a study with another equity research firm where we provide the engagement data and they provide the financial data. And what we've seen is that 65% of both engagement based on Hewitt framework of engagement results in 15% higher total shareholder return above the industry average in that year. Between 45% and 65%, it is at par with industry average, and less than 45% actually employees are destroying value. It's below industry average, right? And our best employers are in that high performance zone. The average engagement level in the last study for best employers in India was 77%. So those are the companies which are really delivering superior shareholder returns. CEO's agreement with the following statements about human resources. HR actively partners with managers, leaders to design and adjust programs to meet business needs. And HR understands and applies insight to business strategy and improves line managers' capabilities to enhance people management. As you can see, that this is high for both the best and the rest. Certainly the best is a shade higher than the rest, but I think as human resources teams, as professionals, we've been able to align ourselves to CEO needs pretty well. Then the next question is, how do we align ourselves with the leaders and managers, or how do we help leaders and managers to align themselves with the fact that they need to drive employee engagement and traverse the path to becoming best employers? That's our next level of challenge as HR professionals, having aligned ourselves to CEOs in business. Now, that's exactly what we need to do and understand, and that's exactly is the focus of Best Employers 2.0, the 2013 study, which is different from the previous studies in terms of bringing in this focus of helping HR try and align the leaders and managers with this employee agenda, not to help employees, not to help HR, but to help themselves, to help improve their business through people. With this, I will hand over to Sushil to take us through the details of the 2.0 study.
Thank you, Prashant. So we've understood and discussed the macroeconomic impact of the study. We've understood the play between engagement and business results, and how HR is an important lever for making that difference. Now I'm going to talk about the journey to becoming a best employer. So we call it a journey because it's really a moving target. Every year, priorities change, businesses change, economies change. In fact, for us also, the Best Employer study has had some interesting questions in our journey as we moved along. So when we started out way back in 2001, we used to get questions from business leaders and CEOs, and we used to hear them from the HR heads saying that, why do we need a study like this? Why do you want to participate in a study like this? And in the last two studies that we've seen, interestingly, we've had HR heads coming and talking to us and telling us that being a best employer is now part of the KRA of the HR function, according to the CEO. So it's been a journey for us, and we've seen the changes coming year on year. While the framework remains the same for us, our research design primarily works with the same sources of inputs. We've had to make certain changes to bring these inputs into the study. So I'm going to spend some time on talking about the genesis of the study and our whole intent with the study, the methodology, the frameworks, and what are the benefits for your organization to be a part of this journey. So the objectives when we started out the study, and the objectives still remain the same, were really to provide insights into how to create real competitive advantage through people. And Prashant has talked about how engagement makes a big difference to business results. The second was to explore what makes a workplace of choice. This is still and because it's a moving target, it is still a gray area. We now have new generations joining into the workforce. It's always about what is it that employees want. It's also about understanding what is it that drives employees. And that's what we try and understand with this study. And finally, it's really about identifying the best employers in the region, in Asia Pacific, and also in India. And over the last 11 years of running the study, we've collected a body of research which has helped us in defining a best employer in our parlance. It's also helped organizations in understanding where they stand in this journey and what are the things that they're doing well to do more of, and what are the things that they need to start to do because the market has changed, the trends may have changed, or there are certain things that have become important for the organization at that point in time. So the last study that was conducted in 2011 had 800 organizations representing 23 industries. So clearly this was the largest study of its kind in our region. And the information was collected from over 1,43,000 employees, representing views of over 2.5 billion workforce across Asia. So this has given us a wealth of information and wealth of insights to somewhere demystify what it means to be a best employer, or what is it that organizations do to remain productive, progressive, and high on their business scores. So the last study was done in 2011, and the 2013 study now has 9 countries participating. So there's China, Hong Kong, India, Indonesia, Korea, Malaysia, Singapore, Taiwan, and Thailand. Let's spend some time in understanding what constitutes a best employer. So over the last few years of our research, we've really identified a few questions that define being a best employer. So from the business leaders or a HR leader's perspective, it's really about, are my employees engaged? What are the drivers with the largest potential to improve engagement in my organization? How compelling is my employer brand? Who is competing for my employees? How effective are my leaders in the eyes of my employees? Is there a disconnect between the views of my employees and leaders? And this refers back to the slide that we saw on rhetoric versus reality. And do I have a high performance culture? Are my managers inspiring my employees? As you can see, we've got 4 buckets in which we've identified these questions. And for us, these are really the drivers basis which we've defined being a best employer. So for us, being a best employer means a high employee engagement score. It means a compelling employer brand. It means effective leadership. And it means a high performance culture. Let's talk a bit more on each of these. High employee engagement. So for us, high employee engagement is beyond employee satisfaction score. We have a model on say, stay, and strive, which says that employees will say good things about the organization outside the organization. They intend to stay with the organization longer, and they feel motivated, or they strive harder to meet the business goals. So say, stay, and strive. A compelling employer brand. So this goes back to the previous slides about the rhetoric versus reality. It's really about the experience that the employee has based on the promise that he was made when he joined the organization. So is that promise being met in terms of the experience that he has as an employee with the organization? Is the organization well known and has a good reputation in the market for meeting that experience? Does it ensure that people join the company and what they had imagined before recruitment remains a consistent story? And are employees proud to be part of that organization? So together this amounts to a compelling employer brand. Effective leadership. This is a driver that we've added recently based on a lot of feedback that we have received from employees in the previous engagement surveys that we've done or from the best employer study. And also considering the fact that there has been some level of issues of ethics, some level of issues of loss of faith in senior leadership in organizations and also in the world. So this is really about senior leaders and how they are perceived. Do employees believe that they provide a clear vision for the organization? Do employees believe that senior leaders make good business decisions? And this has become more important given the vagaries of the economic cycles and how quickly changes happen in countries and economic cycles and also with organizations. And finally, do employees feel treated as valued asset and think that communications from the senior leaders are open and honest? So what they're really saying is that, am I part of your complete business equation? Are you treating me as an important part of your growth story? Moving on. So high-performance culture. This is really about employees being clear about their goals and knowing that, if they contribute to the organization's overall performance, then there is a complete mechanism of rewards and recognition that is in place for them. And they believe that there is a share for them in the overall success of the organization from this. And if they meet their goals, the organization does well, then there are excellent career and employee learning opportunities as they go along. So these are our 4 pillars for the study: being a high employee engagement score, having a compelling employer brand, having effective leadership, and having a high performance culture. So let's understand our tools and the methodology for the study now. Just a quick reminder, in case you have any questions, please write these down in the chat window, and Prashant and I can take them after we finish the session. So we identify or evaluate best employers based on 3 inputs. There is an employee opinion survey, which is run online, and this is a stratified random sample that we create, and then we send out emails to employees in an organization that's participating, requesting them for their views. The second one is the people practices inventory, where we have HR answer questions in an online survey about all the policies, practices, and the good things that the organization is doing in terms of its talent management practices, performance management practices, which are different, innovative, and have been effective for the organization. And finally, we look at the CEO's perspective through a questionnaire and an interview to understand what is the CEO's vision for the business and how does talent and individuals feature in that equation from a growth and business sustainability perspective. So really from these 3 tools, with the CEO we understand the vision from the leader. With the PPI we understand the interpretation of that vision in terms of actions. And finally from the employees we gather their validation of both the vision and the actions, and also understand their overall view of the different facets of the organization and their experience with the employer. Based on these 3 tools, we then analyze, and we have an independent jury that then evaluates and chooses the best employers. So we believe that as a consulting firm, Aon Hewitt, it is important for us to step back and let an independent jury decide on the country's best employers. So this jury typically comprises of academicians, editors of newspapers and magazines, and also business leaders who are not part of any organization that is participating either in their management committees or on their boards. Importantly, the jury also does not get to see the names of organizations when they are evaluating them. So they really get blind data, which means that we mask the names of the companies. And based on the jury's decision, there are lists that come out of the best employers in India. And the second input out of the study is really a set of diagnostic tools and best practices tools in the form of reports that we provide to participants to understand where they stand, how they're doing, and what are the things that could go well. It also gives them benchmarks and also gives them best practices of what is it that has been working well for organizations and what are the good ones doing to keep themselves up on the curve. So the benefits for participating in the study. So one is that you get benchmarks against best employers. You get to know what is it that differentiates the ones that are high on their scores on the 4 drivers and sub-drivers within those. You get diagnostic reports on improving your business impact from an HR perspective. And this year we're looking at a list of best employers from a national level and also some new and different reports that are going to come out. We are also looking at industry cuts based on number of participants in each industry sector. And we're also going to be coming out with our insights on the new and emerging trends that are coming up, whether it's in terms of technology and data usage by HR organizations, or the best practices that we collate from the progressive winning companies. And finally, there's going to be media coverage for the winners. So our magazine partner, and we are proud to say, is People Matters, which has become the preeminent HR magazine in India. It's a magazine that has, in the last 4-5 years, really taken up that space which was lying vacant for many years, for HR professionals, business leaders to go to pick up the right research and insights on what's happening specifically in India from a talent perspective. We will also be announcing our other media partners shortly. So you would have noticed that Prashant also mentioned that this is the Best Employers 2.0 study. So we've changed the study a bit in this year. The tools for the study remain the same. What we've done is we have made certain changes to the study in terms of its methodology and the program management of it, to make it more efficient and of more value for participating organizations. So from this year, we have a participant report which is designed around the 4 themes which we have talked about in the previous slides around engaged employees, a compelling employer brand, effective leadership, and a high-performance culture. We are also looking at a faster delivery of reports. Specifically on your scores in the participant report, we are promising to give it 5 to 6 weeks after you finish your 3 tools, which is the employee opinion survey, the people practices inventory, and the CEO interview. We've simplified tools to reduce the time spent by participants in providing information. And we're looking at new data cuts in terms of industry reports, a Gen Y cut, and a special cut for public sector enterprises. Gen Y cut is something that has come up again in a lot of discussions that we've had in our consulting assignments, where people want to understand how is this generation different from all the generations that have been employed and have worked in organizations. So this is an attempt to demystify some of the expectations of Gen Y, and also what is it that they're experiencing and how do they find it to be good or different from what they would have liked. And finally, from this year, we're going in for a paid participation for the study, simply because this study has been running for over a decade now, and it's been a big investment from Aon Hewitt's end in terms of our resources, our technology, and the complete ecosystem that we create for running the study. So this year, to partly defray the costs that we incur on the study, we are going to be running a paid participation going forward. So participation options. For you to participate, the eligibility criteria is that you should have at least 50 full-time employees, and you should have been in business in India for more than 2 years. And we promise confidentiality for every participating organization. We do not disclose names of participating organizations externally. Only those organizations that are named Aon Hewitt Best Employers are identified publicly, and we take that to the media, we announce it in the press, and we also help out organizations that make it to the cut in leveraging this in the external world. So pricing options. So there are 2 ways that an organization can participate. One is to look at a foundation option, and the second is to look at an insights option. The tools for both are the same, which is the employee opinion survey, the people practices inventory, and the CEO questionnaire. What changes are the deliverables in terms of the diagnostic tools and the reports that we give you. So in the foundation option, which is really a base level option at 2.5 lakhs and taxes, we provide 2 reports. One is the participant report and the second is the country report. And I'll talk a little more about each of these reports in subsequent slides. And then we also come and do a debrief session with the leadership team on your organization's results. The coverage is, as we mentioned, it's a stratified random sample that we look at, which is capped at 2,000 employees, but is really dependent on number of employees, and we would look at a statistically valid sample for your organization to determine the number of people that need to be surveyed. The insights option really gives you a very in-depth view of your talent practices. It also gives you a view of your scores by demographics, by business units, and we also give you reports on best practices of best employers. And importantly, we've got a new tool called VIA, which is an online tool where we give you a license for a whole year to be able to slice and dice your own data and look at clubbing different business units or different demographic sets and understanding, your scores. And this tool also helps your organization in managing your action planning that you decide to do based on the inputs that you get from the Best Employer Study. This also includes a debrief session for the leadership team. And this option is at 6 lakhs plus taxes. To participate in the study, you need to send us an email, and in case you need more details, we can possibly do a call or a meeting with you. And then you choose the option that you want to go with, and then we start your registration process.
Thank you, Prashant and Sushil and Prashant. I just wanted to check. There are some questions. So, would you like to take the questions at the end, or are you able to see the questions? Otherwise, we can send them to you privately.
Yeah, we can see the questions. In the interest of time, we'll take a few, and then we can possibly respond to them over email after the session. Thanks.
Wonderful. Yeah.
So very quickly about the report. So there's a participant report, which is a high-level view of your scores on the 4 drivers and the sub-drivers that we discussed about in the previous slides. The country report gives you an aggregated result of the participants in India, and it tells you the scores by drivers and how it's moving. The engagement report gives you a very comprehensive look at your scores by business units, by demographics, and also by the different drivers that we spoke about. And the best practices report is really a collation of all the good practices that we witness as a part of the study when we go out and do audits with the shortlisted organizations. And we've already talked about online access for the second option. So this is a snapshot of VIA where you can actually create your own reports and you can look at your scores in a more detailed manner. Finally, about the timeline. So the study has been open now since 15th of January, and the registration is open till end of May, till 30th of May. The judging will happen in September, and we will announce India's best employers in November 2013. And as mentioned, the participant report will be available 5 weeks after we collect the data for the 3 tools from the organization. And country reports and other reports will be available after the announcement of the Aon Hewitt Best Employers in November. So really there are 3 reasons that we believe organizations should participate in this study. One is that we look at 3 distinct sources of data. So we look at a CEO and the leader's perspective, we look at the HR's people practices report, and we look at the employee's view of the organization. The second one is that we have an external judging panel which ensures that there are no biases into the system. And finally, it's really Aon Hewitt's experience of the last decade of doing the study, of bringing in modifications and tweaks to the study to make it robust and relevant in the current times. And it's also about understanding or interpretation of results that we've been able to do based on our consulting assignments of all these years on engagement and on business practices and business performance. So with that, we come to a close on this session. Join us on the journey. You can write to us over email or contact us for more details or to confirm your participation. We have another 5 minutes left, so we'll take a few questions here. And while we do that, here are some experiences of organizations that participated in the 2011 study. So there was a question about, can you please tell us more on how to participate in the study? Well, you can, like I mentioned, you can write to us and we can arrange for a call or a meeting to walk you through the details, or if you want to confirm your participation, you can mail us. There's a question here on how will HR drive employee engagement activity in a sales-driven organization which considers even HR as a non-productive function? So that's an interesting question. Prashant, you want to answer this?
Can you repeat the question again?
Yeah, the question is, Prashant, the question is, how will HR drive employee engagement activity in a sales-driven organization which considers even the HR function as a non-productive function?
Okay, so forget sales-driven organization. Forget sales-driven organization. It's any company, any function. The engagement has to be owned by the business manager or business leaders, right? HR cannot own engagement, right? Because human resources are owned by business, and rightly so, and not by HR. So you can't take on the responsibility of driving any HR initiative in any function, forget engagement, and more so engagement. It has to be owned by the manager and the leader. HR can only act as an enabler, a facilitator, a helping hand, a partner. Have I answered the question completely, or there's something more that I need to clarify?
No, that's good, Prashant. Thanks. So there's a question here which is about, is there any other award category other than the Best Employer Award? So, well, like we mentioned in the session, we are looking at a list of India's best employers. That's one. Second, we are looking at the coolest companies for Gen Y. And this is a new award category that we've instituted. And then based on the participation across industry categories, we will look at a list or lists coming out of different industry segments. So these are really the 3 segments that we're looking at. And the 4th segment is around the public sector enterprises. We have quite a few questions here. So in the interest of time, what we promise to do is we will come back to you over email and respond to your questions. So thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to a lot of you joining us on this journey. Over to you, Rajlakshmi.
Thank you, Sushil, and thank you, Prashant, for this wonderful presentation. I'm sure there was a lot of learning today. And with the question and answer session, we are going to wrap up today's webinar. For more updates around our events, please visit www.peoplematters.in/events. Once again, we thank today's webinar sponsor, Aon Hewitt. Do visit www.aonhewitt.com/India for more details. Finally, our special thanks to you two speakers, Prashant and Sushil, and also to the wonderful audience. We will ensure that, as promised, we will have these questions answered and very soon and get back to you. That concludes today's webcast. Thank you all. Have a good day.